Good evening, Canada. Welcome to our new episode of Voice of Canada. We telecast every month. My co-host is Marlene Gallio, and we have a wonderful, fantastic guest who is not very known personality. Has remained as an MPP, a former councillor in Toronto. So it was really hard for us to get him here on the demand of our viewers. He's Giorgio Mammoliti. Welcome to our show, and will you briefly introduce yourself
Thank
to
you.
our viewers and to all of us?
I will. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Giorgio Mammoliti. I'm 61 years old. I began my political career in 1990 as a member of provincial parliament, and then moved to North York with Mel Lassman as a municipal representative in 1995. And then in 1997, the mega city was born, and I took over with the mega city, the same area, and spent the next 18 years after that. So it's been about 30 years in the making with my career, and I'm very happy to be here and share my thoughts with you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, my name is Marlene Gallio, and it's an honor that Mr. Aspy had given me this opportunity to co-host for you. And welcome to the Voice of Canada. So it's a big thing. You put your name forward to run for mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you released your platform, but would you like to say something about that, or you plan to release it later?
Main agenda,
One of the things
manifesto.
I promise you today is a good interview, and I will be touching on my platform
Definitely.
in every aspect. We haven't announced it yet in its entirety, but I promise you I'll touch on it today.
What will be your main thrust on which issues?
So, for me, it's about what's currently happening on our streets. Very unsafe. The subways are unsafe. I believe we've lost a lot of our family values. I think we're lost as a society, and I'd like to fix it by reintroducing family values to our Toronto. And with that, I believe a good plan on enforcement, and not only enforcement by giving the police their tools back, but also preventative measures that include mental health. So I'd love to talk about all
because
of that.
there's many issues after the pandemic was over. These are the outcome of those.
Yeah, and I do want to be somewhat critical with respect to the decisions that were made during COVID, because COVID was, in my opinion, a great excuse for some politicians not to consult with their local communities. And they spent a lot of money, and we don't even know half of what
huge
really
funds
happened.
And Canada is in a bad debt for a very long time to come.
We have to figure all of this out.
Mr. Mammoliti, you are a great friend of our former mayor. We used to love him, Rob Ford of Ford Nation.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to inform our viewers, and I feel, though I see those memories, that you stood by him till the end.
I did.
What may happen, but he was a good mayor. He was the mayor who used to approachable. He used to meet each and everybody.
Yeah.
And he was the man and savior for the poor people.
Yeah. Not many people know the value of.
And he used to do a lot.
He was. I mean, he started his career in people's basements and people's apartments, and meeting the grassroots at every level. He went from the west end of Toronto to the east end of Toronto, and he built a grassroots movement without anybody knowing. Right? It was almost like a secret until he decided to run for mayor. And then you saw the power of the people come out through Rob Ford.
Because he was loved as a people's mayor.
Yeah.
I was always used to say he was the people's mayor.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't the intellect that everybody typically elects, right? But he was a grassroots guy who understood the
problems, the basic problems of the people
of each family. Yeah. And he tried to bring it out as best he could, and it was a pleasure serving under him.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We are very sure of that. You were always sitting beside him, even at the council, and that's how I used to admire you. Okay, this is the man who is supporting our mayor.
Somebody needed to protect him as well from the people that wanted him,
People.
and that was me. I chose to take that role on, and
Definitely, you did the right thing.
yeah. And now I want to protect Torontonians.
That really sounds good. Toronto needs some safety now and safeguard with a very strong city third-tier government in Toronto. And we are going to talk a lot about many things which we have to solve, even in not only in Toronto, but in the region of Peel as well.
Yes. We're all intertwined, aren't we? It's not just about Toronto.
We are interlinked.
Anything that happens in Toronto is typically what's going to happen or is happening in the
all over
GTA
GTA.
as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But Toronto is a really big city, and but the premier reduced the number of councils to 25. You think that this decision was made a negative or a positive impact on council?
I think that's yet to be determined to a large degree. Now, the Toronto mayor has more powers as well, as you know. So I think we'll see whether or not that was a really good decision over the next few years.
But unfortunately, the last mayor couldn't use any of his powers.
No. But for me, I supported the concept, knowing that I put my own job at risk. I was thinking about Toronto, what's best for Toronto, and we have to think that way as politicians, because you have to do what's best for people, not think about your own personal kind
interest,
of political agenda. So I did that, and I think most people know what happened. But at the same time, for me, it was a wonderful break after a 30-year career. Yeah.
My question is, in continuation of Marlene's, the population of Toronto is about 32.5 million, tentatively. And the population of region of Peel is less than even Mississauga is less than 1 million.
Yeah.
We have 11 councillors in the region of Peel.
Yeah.
Whereas Toronto, with such a huge population, has got just 25. So many times we requested the Premier that he should look into reducing, because the cost, the overheads of 11 councillors and few are not working. They have gone redundant, because to win again and again in the third-tier election is not that difficult, and they are sitting for last 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
And showing eyes to their own constituents.
So you'll hear me joking it's not really a joke, but you'll hear me joking in this campaign. I've got a platform to bring people back to work, the councillors.
Definitely.
Politicians have to stop being lazy to a large degree.
And make them accountable.
And make them accountable. You'll hear me talk about that in the election. And I've got a plan for that. It's time to get them out of their pajamas and back to work. And COVID helped many of them realize how lazy they might actually be. So we have to bring them back into the fold and do the job for their constituents, Rob Ford style, right? I want to be able to, force them to have meetings, to report out to council on why they're suggesting these changes in policy, and then we know whether or not they're reflective truly of the community they represent.
And have an open door policy like Rob used to do.
Always. I mean,
because lots of bureaucracy is also killing our third-tier governments. Toronto, as well as the other municipalities, now the bureaucracy is ruling.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Because I'm not a fan of huge bureaucracies. I think it's worse than huge councils, right? We spend more money with six-figure salaries in government than politicians get paid, but it's the decisions that come out of bureaucracy that are hurting us the most, and I want to talk about it this election.
Definitely,
right? The first thing I'm going to do is fire the medical officer of health in Toronto, because her leadership, her policies have crippled our sidewalks safety, and people are not safe anymore, having to literally step over people, and homelessness is an issue that we have to deal with properly, not leaving people outside, but helping them, right? The so-called safe injection sites, I'm not a fan of, even though
you favored the vaccines or not?
Are you talking vaccines or
The policy and the vax also.
So let me just say this to you. We went through a process of government telling us what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what to say, what not to say. People need their freedom back. And freedom starts at a municipal level of government. So for me, I want to talk about that. Now, a lot of us were afraid. So we took the vaccines thinking that we were doing the right thing, including myself.
Correct.
But when you listen to the rest of the public and you hear them cry out for attention, a lot of them felt uncomfortable with it.
True.
And they didn't like government telling them what to do. We were forced to stay into our homes.
Lockdowns.
Right? When have we ever experienced this? And governments loved it because they were able to spend our money wherever they wanted without anybody giving them any advice at all. This has to change. If we ever go forward with this again, we better do a better job of treating our people with dignity and respect. And they started fights amongst neighbors as well. So what COVID did is it not only did we feel like we weren't respected, but it divided communities. We were arguing with our neighbors in lineups and grocery stores and you're looking at me too close. You shouldn't be doing this. Stay away, That's not what humanity is about, right? Humanity is about, loving each other and feeling comfortable with each other.
And Canadians are compassionate people.
Well, we have to talk about this because it's affected our way of life even today, right? Even after COVID is over.
No, still we're going
still
through suffering
right?
from various problems and issues which has emerged, which we never dreamt of.
Right. And so for me, I want to be that voice. I want to be the voice for the people. I want to be the voice for the families. The families have to come first before politics. And that's what you're going to hear in my campaign. And if we stick to that model, if we stick to that message, we will deal with every social problem that we've got, including safety in our streets, because it starts with our children. It starts with playgrounds. It starts with allowing our children to be safe again. And we've lost that. We've lost our way. It starts with faith.
Definitely.
There has to be somebody that says, let's bring faith institutions back to because we've lost it. And the people that are causing, can I look at the
definitely.
The people that have caused this this divide amongst families, amongst the security of ourselves, are people that don't believe in any faith. They're the people that have forced politicians to listen to the minority and not the good, working, hard family people that have issues. Those people can't eat right now, because of what we're concentrating on the other end of the equation. We have to think about our families. We have to think about whether the kids are going to grow up with a job, whether they can afford a home. And I'll touch on that in my campaign.
Please do. That is a major issue.
Can they afford a phone? It's time that government consider, giving them their a one-time loan or a one-time forgiveness loan so that they're able to put it on a house or first and last month rent. Because a lot of people can't afford this today.
Afford now. Even they are not able to afford the food to put on the food on the table.
Right. So
these days
we have got to change how government is, and I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination socialism, because I'm not. I want to choose what programs work and which ones don't after the audit that I do of our books, and then redirect it to areas that are going to affect in a positive way those families and those children. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Not many people know that you were an MPP. And I think your writing was Yorkview.
It was Yorkview at the time, yes.
So I guess now what you just told us, I think this comes really handy.
Very handy and useful. He was a former MPP.
You're able to have a bigger
And who was
voice.
the premier that time?
So I was an MPP at the time of Bob Rae, believe it or not.
Bob Rae, okay.
And I represented, I didn't last very long with the government because I recognized after 3 or 4 short years that I really didn't belong to that government. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I was a kid. I was 27 years old, and so
Young, energetic.
you know, but I learned, and I had the appetite to learn about things, and then gradually over time, obviously I'm a conservative, I always have been, but I learned on what was best for communities, and you have to be flexible
for the people.
You have to be flexible with everybody, because one minute they're left of center, the minute they're center, the other minute they're right of the spectrum. You have to read your public. And I was blessed at a young age to have the responsibility of being parliamentary assistant to 3 different ministers.
Beautiful.
One of them was the Solicitor General. The other was the Minister of Health. And the other was the minister responsible for the anti-drug strategy. So I'm the one who actually wrote the policy on how to treat drug addiction in this province in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought a number of sweeping changes on how we treated people. Back then, we didn't see it as an illness. We didn't see it as and so that report and that law changed after I did my work, and then the Ministry of Health got brought on board, and you know, I'm not necessarily happy with what we're doing right now, because I don't believe that throwing people on the streets and you know, is a good way to treat drug addiction. But I'm proud of the fact that I learned a lot about this, and now going through this crisis in Toronto, I feel I've got a lot to contribute as
definitely.
The mayor.
You're bringing a rich experience, your past rich experience.
I do, yeah.
So with that note, we'll be taking a short break and be with you soon. Welcome back after our short break in our show, Voice of Canada. Our honored guest is Giorgio Mammoliti. I am your host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla, and my charming co-host is Marlene Gallo. So welcome back after the interview. Now let's touch base on your past experience. We see that you were also the president of one of the big labor unions here in Toronto, GTHA. So would you like to throw some light on that? Because that is also a very important position.
You remember, I did speak about experience and how I tried to absorb everything I could as a young adult, and in my 20s, I got involved with my then employer, Ontario Housing at the time, and the local union that was there. It represented about 2,500 people, and I negotiated 3 collective agreements at a young age. Learned much about labor relations. In fact, that's I went to school and graduated around labor relations, and I felt comfortable. Got so comfortable with it that I became political. I went down to Queen's Park regularly. I gave deputations on behalf of the workers, and I felt comfortable moving into a political kind of agenda at that point, again at a young age. So for me, that particular highlight helped me understand what is truly going on in our poverty-stricken communities. I call it segregation. I believe we're segregating the poor to this day.
True.
And that's one of the reasons I wrote the official affordable housing policy with Toronto, to end the segregated communities that exist in Toronto, and to give some breathing space to those families. We're talking 6 generations of welfare. We've treated them like they've been outcast for almost 70 or 80 years, and we need to change the way we do business around that. So that job helped me understand the plight of people, and the logic and the reasoning as to why things are happening in those communities that really shouldn't be happening, right? It really is anger that's built up. When you treat somebody badly, chances are they're going to act badly, right?
Every action has got a reaction.
Yeah. So I've learned those lessons. I've brought them forward in my career. I've been criticized many times about wanting to do exactly that, get rid of segregation and help. Believe it or not, I've been criticized in trying to help people find work and find a new location to live for themselves and their family that's safer. Some people felt that I was being too aggressive in bringing forward a mix and changing the scope of communities. but I still believe it's the right thing to do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice because the viewers are getting a chance to see another side of you that you don't normally see and talk about. So there's also something that I'd like to ask you that you had a company actually, and you were the CEO of a consulting company.
Of my own company.
Do you
yes.
still have that? And
I let it go.
You let it
I
go.
let it go because COVID was very hard on companies, as you know. So clients weren't that comfortable, especially around the world.
Mhm.
I had the luxury of traveling around the world and working out some deals. So I did let it go during COVID. I then decided to pursue politics again. So I'm putting my business career on hold, hoping that Toronto has enough faith in me so that I could put my efforts into being a full-time mayor without any company behind me.
Or any
Only the
interference
mayor,
from anywhere.
nothing else.
Focus here.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to show a commitment as a full-time mayor with nothing on the side, not making any money somewhere else, just worrying about the city of Toronto and making sure it's safe on those streets.
You supported the gravy train.
I supported the concept of eliminating of gravy
train.
We did not finish that agenda.
Going back now.
I feel like I want to finish that agenda. We saved the taxpayer $1 billion.
A lot of money was saved, and people felt the relief of it when Rob was doing what he was doing.
And then what happens?
But it fizzled out.
They went after us. They went after us personally. They went after Rob.
Attacking
I
him,
believe they killed him. Because he was thinking about the taxpayer and saving money. And so between that attacks on him and the attacks on me and the attacks on Doug Ford, we took a lot of hits.
A lot of hits from lots of elements.
Because we saved the taxpayer $1 billion. Now I want to do the same thing as the mayor. I want to go back and I want to do it again. Because I believe we're wasting money in certain areas of City Hall. And I want to place them into areas that are of priority. Policing is a priority. TTC is a priority.
Now it's become a very important priority.
I want to be able to fund TTC's own police department that has a mental health unit as well.
That's amazing.
And that'll be the first time it's being done. Vancouver has its own police department in its transit
for the
system.
transit.
So does New York. It's time that Toronto think about this.
Because Toronto has become a very important metropolitan city of North America. We must think on those lines, what our other cities are doing already. Mr. Mammoliti, will you throw some light on the three controversial issues like the carbon tax, federal carbon tax, and the current rate of inflation, which is hitting very badly. Today, the rate of inflation was announced last month is 4.3%. So it is alarming.
Let me give you an example of how I feel about all of this. It's almost like you breaking your leg, going to the hospital, putting a cast on, going to recover, and then getting the flu. And then after you get the flu, you get a cold. And then after you get a cold, you get an infection. And everything just hits you at once, right? So what's happened with taxes over the years is governments have decided that, well, we can't really decide on which programs to cut. So why don't we just tax everybody for everything, right? Carbon tax is a prime example of that. I'm not a fan of carbon tax. I'm a fan of looking at what the agenda might be. And if it's the environment, then let's talk about that. Let's talk about where to spend money.
Where to spend money and how to.
And be honest with the public. We need from you $1,000 each, right? If that's what you want. I wouldn't support that. But if that's what they wanted, let's be honest with the public and say, we want to fund these initiatives and not hide behind a carbon tax or a fee or, and there's a tax now in Toronto called the vacancy tax.
Vacancy tax is there. The foreign purchase buyers tax.
I'm going to get rid of that tax completely.
Vacancy tax is unreasonable. People have invested. It's their property.
Yeah. So I just see things as hitting us everywhere. And I don't want, we can't sustain it anymore. Our families they can't have 3 or 4 jobs anymore to be able to just stay afloat, right? So we need a mayor that is going to stop that and be real with the people and say, this is what we can afford and this is what we can't afford. Having said that, We have a lot of immigrants that are coming to Toronto,
Definitely, definitely.
and we have got to be there for them.
Mhm.
You know, we're
We
not
don't have to leave them like
No.
this.
right.
As soon as they arrive, they say we are at the airport, and after that, nobody cares for us.
but we've got to free up money for them too, and we're spending a lot of money in areas that I think are worthy of us looking at again, and then bringing them again. When I say family, I'm talking about immigration families as well. Immigrants that have come with their families, right? I think they need more support, right? So let's find that money and let's give it
Plus,
to
we
them.
have got a major refugee problems every year from some country or the other. We have to accept refugees.
Yeah.
Just now, we are currently accepting from Ukraine, which I fully support because Ukraine doesn't deserve what is happening to them under the hands of Russia.
But isn't that what Canada is about? You know, being there for the rest of the world when they need us the most. We've always been doing that.
Earlier, we got the Afghans.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we even had lots of Syrians coming. So it's an ongoing process. And then the real immigrants who want to come, the applications are in the pipeline for last 10 years. They are waiting and waiting and waiting, but the cases are not settled or they are not being called because they got the refugees out of turn. So that is also not fair.
So we say to people, we're here for you. We're going to bring you over. And it's not right to just abandon them at that point. We need to be able to have them feel comfortable in our country and in our city, and make sure that things like English as a second language are affordable for them to be able to learn the language. Jobs are very important.
Very important,
and
yeah.
we need them to think about the different areas that they're qualified to work in and help them get into. So trade unions, you'll hear me talk about the importance of trade unions and how important it is to train everybody, right? Including our children. But immigrants for sure coming into the country and training them for work that they probably know already, you know, what they're doing and how to do it. So give them the language, give them some work. And I think you'll find that everything else will fall into place.
Right?
This
Definitely.
is what I used to do before. I don't know if you know, I was an immigration consultant.
So you know it.
And they took away the family class. And I know now you're talking about this, it's excellent because I know now you will work well with all levels of government.
Right.
Because, you know, you need the federals to back you up on that. And I'm sure if you push your way through this, it'll work.
Nobody can push harder than me.
No, we have seen you working. We have seen you working in the past. And I'm assured that lots of people, knowing that you are in the race, is going to support you.
Yes, I'm getting a wide variety of people and organizations already in this campaign. The faith institutions are supporting me because of the messaging and my belief in faith institution playing a role in getting rid of the issues that currently exist today. If we were just to bring all the faith institutions in, not for one day, but for 4 years, and have their opinion given to us as government on what we should do with every program, we wouldn't have a problem. They would be partners with us.
It's a massive job. The job of a worship of mayor of Toronto is not an easy task.
No, you need
It's a very, very challenging job, I would say.
We need everybody's strength, right?
Strength. And being a non-party, you have to be very, very clear.
Yeah. Well, I need to say this because I believe that a nonpartisan role is important to me. Now, while I'm fiscally conservative, I also believe that I am a lot more left of center than most politicians.
Definitely.
I believe that we have to take care of our most vulnerable. I've written policy around that on affordable housing. I created the work around drug addiction. I want to use those skills to be able to fix it on the left side of the equation. So I want to be able to go back and forth.
So you can balance it, balance the issues.
Right? Yeah, it's a good word for that. Thank you.
And I know this is different though. We are facing a huge issue on interest rates. They're all going up so high.
It's 4.5, but God,
shortage of workers.
God was kind,
And the high gas prices. I know that it's different levels of government deal with different things, but I'm sure that you will have an opportunity as a mayor to fight for the people, because the people, no matter what, whether it's a municipal, provincial, or federal level, they all want the same thing.
But let me add one more part of the question.
Yeah.
This morning only CP24 announced that from tomorrow, The gas prices are
So it's
going
going
to
up
be
high.
by 8 cents.
Right.
8 cents is not a joke
Right.
for a common middle class man, because the gas is a necessity.
Right.
We go for work, we do various things for our life. It's no more a luxury.
Yeah.
So it's a shock that such shocks are coming off and on. 1st April, the carbon tax was increased on gas. That was also unnecessarily. The Prime Minister could have held it, given a pause on gas prices, where he knows that the gas prices are over 1.54 cents per liter.
And at a time where people can't even afford eggs or butter.
Yeah, the
or,
basic dairy products, the food, the bread,
anything. It just comes at the wrong time. And that's what I said earlier. Everything just isn't just pounded onto the families, and the families can't afford it anymore. So we have to fight back, right? And that's why a mayor like me is important at this time, because I am that fighter. I am that guy.
You're a
who will
fighter.
support
You're taking up the
families
issues.
and morality and all the things that are plaguing us right now in society. I have a belief that I can bring the solutions to the table and make sense of it all and make it work, right? And so for me, you know, when I hear that the gas tax is going back up, you know, we have to remind people that we are larger than most provinces in this country, right? And so we have to push back. We have to say, no, enough's enough. You know, we deserve better, right? And we deserve a break. And you know, municipalities are still running on 8 cents on the dollar. For every dollar that our communities give in taxes, 8 cents is given back to municipalities to run their governments. Unfair.
That's unfair.
Especially
very unfair.
as big as we are, with all of the problems that Toronto has, we're still running on 8 cents on the dollar. And that needs to change, and we need to lobby the federal and the provincial governments to treat us better.
And you will be the right man to deal with both the federal and the provincial governments.
I think so.
With your past experiences, with your contacts, and with your so much of experience you have gained in your early age.
I think so. I think the time is ripe for a person like me right now. I know that, you know, in the past, some people thought maybe I was a little too aggressive here and there, but at the end of the day, you learn by your mistakes as well,
also, right? Yeah, correct.
And so I want to bring that forward. I want to work with everybody. I want to make sure that we utilize every councillor's strength in council and come forward with a real agenda to help families cope with what's going on here. Families are suffering, and we have to be there for them.
We'll be taking a short break, and welcome back after our short break. Mr. Mammoliti, there is an old demand from our seniors and veterans. It's a very old demand, not only for Toronto, but all the municipalities, that their property tax should be freezed. Because nowadays, with the current rate of increase of property taxes, people who are staying in the houses for nearly 25, 30 years, and now they are retired, they cannot afford to pay the high rate. There should be a policy that the person owns one house, staying in that house, and has stayed more than 10 years, should be given a freeze. And the veterans also deserve, because veterans are not getting anything much. They are in a very bad shape.
So I'm a seniors advocate. I'm only 4 years away from that title myself as a senior. But I have tried over the years to move motions that in council that talked about how to relieve the tax burden on our seniors.
Yeah, true.
And I recall me moving forward one in particular that almost won, that would have us think about saving the seniors money on their tax, so that they could actually have more home care for themselves. So if you save them that $3,000 or $4,000 a year in their taxes, they're able to bring people in as they grow older, to help them in their own houses. And that would save us money in institutions if we did that, you see. So it makes sense to me to phase in an approach, and you'll hear me talk about this in the election, phase in an approach that would go with the older senior first, and then gradually bring it down as we could afford it, so that seniors don't have to pay tax anymore.
Oh, wow.
That in fact they'd save it, and they would put that money more towards their
own well-being and welfare
as they get older, and they won't have to go into an institution as fast as we're starting to see now. So that's my logic, and I believe I can bring that to the table. We do have to find the money for that, and we have to bring in unique ways of finding the income, of which I have some good ideas for, to kind of replace the money that we would lose if we did that.
And we are wasting so much of funds in various other heads.
But we see eye to eye on this. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Also, there's another pressing question: is the shortage of houses. The house price is going up so high that people can't rent. They can't afford to rent. I know I have kids that they have to share a house with someone because the rents are so high, and so does small business owners. It's very hard for them to conduct their business.
Or first-time buyers, it's become
Very
impossible now.
So I know
It's a red flag for them. They forget about buying a house. You stay in the rented place and survive.
And this is affecting mostly the poor, the middle class.
Well, don't you agree that even our kids, as they're growing up, are stressed out to no end, not knowing where they're going to be in 10 or 15 years? I believe we need to do a complete overhaul of how we think about our families. What is it that we can do to help them survive? What is it that we can do to help that 22 or that 25-year-old move into a life that's comfortable for themselves? Many children are deciding to stay with their families because they can't afford
a place to go or move out.
So maybe it's time for us to think about helping them out with, remember I told you I wrote the affordable housing policy? Well, in that, we talk about this circumstance. And I believe that we could actually offer up some help for first and last month, some help for first deposit on a home. I think municipal governments can do more to help our youth right now. Right now, the youth need it the most.
The most, right? Definitely. And they are our future.
Of course. Does a parent really want to worry about their child at the age of 30 years old and 35 and whether or not they're going to survive, right? Our parents are having to struggle with having a pension given to them that's minimal and sharing that with a 35-year-old child,
True.
We've never seen that before.
Never seen that before.
So we have to start thinking about how to approach it as a government and how we can best help. Those are the priorities I'm talking about.
Definitely.
Figure out what our priorities are and spend the money in those areas. And if we did that, we'd have our kids working, feeling good about themselves, moving out, having families.
Build confidence in our kids.
Bingo.
Go ahead.
Okay, you've been on many boards and you've been the chair, I guess, for also on many organizations and things like that. But now we've heard that you are planning to bring the panda bears, the Chinese bears, back to the zoo.
the pandas.
That was a very exciting news for pandas.
I have to, the pandas was a highlight of my career. It was fun. It was.
Toronto Zoo
I have to tell you the story.
Stephen Harper brought the pandas.
Let me tell you the story. I need to tell you the story because I took a lot of criticism for 15 years when I was the chair of the Toronto Zoo. I wanted to pursue having pandas at the Toronto Zoo for the first time.
Zoo, definitely.
So I created the policy. The board agreed with me. We moved forward with negotiating with the Chinese government. I went to China probably 6 times to renegotiate that deal. Initially, they were going to name one of the pandas after Mel Lastman.
Wow.
And they were going to call it Mel Mel.
Mel Mel here.
And then as time went on, the governments of Canada, who the Chinese want to deal with, not municipal governments. Once you strike the deal, they want to deal with the Prime Minister.
The federal government,
So I'll tell you what happened. Straight up. Once we negotiated it all, it was difficult to get the Liberal, Mr. Chrétien and Mr. Martin to sign the deal. I think that in fairness to them, I think there was a bit of political animosity, perhaps, with the Chinese government. And the Chinese
but they should
government
not
really
have that for pandas, say.
Well, no, but they just didn't want to do it. So then Harper became the Prime Minister, and we owe the visit of those 2 pandas for those 3 years to Mr. Harper, because Mr. Harper listened to us at the zoo and was able to create and sign the documents that clearly gave us the pandas for the
And
zoo.
you would recall
was
that
very happy.
Mr. Harper received those pandas at the airport.
Yes.
That is to be brought into account that he was the Prime Minister waiting for the aircraft to land and receiving the pandas.
Yes.
That was an honor
Yeah.
for all Canadians. How our Prime Minister is compassionate for the enjoyment of our children and for all of us.
And so
to bring some happiness.
For a brief period of time, there was a bit of a relationship with China at that time, because China just doesn't give away their pandas.
True.
There has to be some
agreement should be there.
Between the two countries, right? And I was in the background, just kind of working it, making sure that that the deal was still there. And I thanked Mr. Harper for actually listening to us.
Which is good, because the viewers now get a chance to know more
what
about
happened.
you.
Yeah.
And what you've
It took 15 years to get those pandas to Toronto.
And I recall the first time I went to Toronto Zoo, was to see a panda.
There you have it.
My heart was anxious to see a panda. My grandchildren were really anxious. Dad, we want to see panda.
And remember, what zoos are really supposed to be about is to protect and educate and prevent abuse of animals. And you know that pandas were and still are a very
extinct,
protected
and extinct.
It could be a possibility.
The production is very low.
Yeah, but zoos have become experts at saving species and experts at breeding them as well. The babies that the pandas had were in the Toronto Zoo.
In the Toronto Zoo, and we should have had an agreement.
Right.
If the babies are born as Canadian nationals, they would have been Canadians. Then why they were gifted free of cost to China?
Yeah.
That's our rule. That's our immigration law. If a child is born in Canada to a non-immigrant mother, the child becomes Canadian. That's a joke and a humor, but that was not implemented.
I love it. Well, the Chinese government never agreed to that, but I would have loved the ability to keep them if we
shouldn't
could.
Stop trying again.
No, we should.
Because even when they left for Calgary, also the Torontonians were really unhappy.
Yeah. It was one of my highlights, I have to tell you.
No, do it again. You will be winning the hearts of lots of young people at the same time old, because we love pandas.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people like to get married at the zoos,
at the zoo.
The world, so
and in the background, the pandas are there.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Yeah.
And even there was a promotion of pandas. Our first lady was pictured with the panda.
There you have it. Yeah.
That also I recall, because we have worked with conservatives shoulder to shoulder, and I recall each and every good deeds what they have done.
Yeah.
For the people's happiness and put smile on our
Everybody
faces.
smiled when they saw those pandas. Put a smile on everybody's face.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know this is another thing that's not in the municipal level, but everyone's wondering about why the wait times and the emergencies are so long. I went to the hospital not too long ago.
It's deteriorating.
I came back from Australia. My blood pressure was over 200 plus. And I had to wait for 6 hours, and seniors were there
14
12
hours.
12 hours, 14 hours. No,
it's not reasonable.
So I believe that our priorities have to change in this country.
Yes.
What is important to us? Is it to be everything to everybody, which we've tried to do for the last 40 years, and then keep the expenses going, even though it's not necessarily a priority for the families, right? Families are important. We should be listening to our families. And right now, healthcare is very important to our families. So let's figure out a way to make sure the money is filtered in properly so that those wait times wouldn't exist. And I believe that by recognizing some of the bureaucratic problems we're having, maybe not very popular amongst the bureaucrats, if people like me start talking about that, we have to be honest with people and say, this is the way we're going to achieve it.
Yeah.
The other problem that exists in Toronto, which I want to talk about, is paramedics. And the fact that our paramedics' time is being spent in hospitals. Because they're not allowed
to leave the patient and go.
And for us, we've got emergencies regularly, and they can't be called out because they're stuck in the hospital. So
we need overall reforms for our hospitals. Health policy is getting really bad to worse. At the same time, the current provincial government is trying to start privatization to health, which lots of people are not happy.
There's a story I heard this week about somebody falling and hurting their head. They didn't die or anything, but they were bleeding, and it was a senior, and it took almost 19 minutes for someone to be called out and dispatched. Right. So
it's a shame.
It's a shame.
It is in this day and age when especially we've got 1/3 of our population are seniors. So we have got to do better with treating
with the emergencies.
Our population with everything. Right. It's about priorities. It's about helping the families with the crisis that they might be in.
As a mayor, you will be playing major role with the police, the transit, the health, and everything. So it is your role will be very, very important. And all these 3-4 utilities or whatever facilities we have got, they are lacking in their services.
Well, there's been some talk about amalgamating services together. I'm not sure if there's an appetite for that again, but we have to look at every measure possible that brings better service to the taxpayers.
To the taxpayers.
I know that I'm a big fan of the fire department and a big fan of the paramedics and a big fan of the police department. And for me, those three departments
are the backbone for our Canadians.
If we lose our respect for them, then we will lose everything, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So I'd like to do an audit of the books and find ways of supporting areas that are needed the most.
Urgently.
Right? So
with that note, we would the production is showing the red signal since about 2-3 minutes that we must, because we are overshooted our time of interview. But I assure you, there are nearly 2 months are there, but I will call you before 10 days. Bring you on Skype. That has I've decided, and Marlene liked my idea. We don't have to bring you all the way from your location, wherever you are, even from the campaign only.
Sure.
We will get you on the Skype, and we'll ask the final remarks, comments, and what do you think about getting elected as a mayor of Toronto. So with that note, will you give your concluding remarks?
Final
remarks.
Thank you.
To the people.
First of all, thank you very much. I would say to the people of Toronto that Giorgio Mammoliti is qualified to be the mayor of the city.
Definitely.
After 30 years in a number of different roles, I want to assure you that I will be there for families before politics. I will be there to make sure those streets get cleaned up. And so you don't have to worry about your son or your daughter or your mother or your father walking down the street and getting assaulted by individuals. If you go onto the subway, it'll be a cleaner, a better experience, a safer experience with Giorgio Mammoliti as the mayor. And I would ask you to consider what is important to you, because what is important to you will be important to me. And I know it's about family. So for me, it starts with family values. It starts with us at home, consultation, government asking us families what it is that we want before those decisions are made, and no more backroom deals and no more lobbyists that are going to run City Hall. It's going to be a mayor like me who doesn't have to worry about anybody breathing down my throat. I don't have my company, as I said earlier. I am in this for Toronto.
A full-time mayor.
Better for you, a full-time mayor.
So with that note, we'll be signing off from today's episode with Giorgio Mammoliti, and request all our viewers and the Canadians to vote on June 26th for our great candidate, Giorgio Mammoliti.
Thank you so much.
And bring him and make him successful so we can get some peace of mind and some relief, because he's the man who knows all the initial problems.
Thank you.
So with that note, we are about to sign off. We'll be seeing you next week again with our show, Voice of Canada. Stay tuned. Keep writing to us. Any suggestions you want to give, we would say good night, goodbye, God bless, and adios. God bless Canada.